Steven Guilbeault is the Minister of Canadian Heritage and a long-time environmental leader in this country. He was part of the government's announcement today. Minister Guilbeault, good to see you again. First of all, thanks for taking time to speak with me. Your government is banning just 6 plastic items in this announcement today. Why those items and not so many other plastic products that end up in our landfills?
Well, today's announcement is much broader than just banning certain plastics. I mean, what we're aiming to do is really to greatly improve recycling in Canada and the products that we recycle or that we can recycle that we're not recycling right now. These 6 products that we're banning because they're very difficult or expensive to recycle, and that there's lots of very viable and affordable options instead of these products. Sorry, but overall, what we are trying to do is to ensure that when we use a plastic component, regardless of what it is, it can be recycled again and again and again. And more and more people are talking about this concept of circular economy, where basically you would make wasting products a thing of the past. Now, I'm not saying that will happen tomorrow morning, right, but that's certainly what we're aiming for in the coming years.
Okay. Do you expect the government will be adding more products to the list?
Well, not necessarily. We might, but that's not the objective. Again, you know, I mean, the reason we're banning those is because they can hardly be recycled. But what we will be doing in the coming months is talking with experts, with Canadian public, environmental organizations, and obviously the industry, provinces and territories, which are a very important partner in this endeavor. We can't do it without them. To look at how do we do this together? Because it needs to be a concerted effort. It can't just be provinces or even municipalities. It can't just be the industry. It can't just be individual citizens.
Let me jump in and ask.
It has to be a holistic approach.
Okay, let me jump in and ask about the timeline here. And I guess some people will hear the announcement today and say, like, why is the ban taking another year to implement when those 6 items that have been named, the discussions, consultations with manufacturers, it's already happened. A lot of those products are already being phased out by the manufacturers themselves.
That's
so
true.
Why another year?
It's really the regulatory process we have to go through in order to ban and to put in place this overall strategy. So it is being done largely to the Canadian Environmental Protection Act, which we call CEPA, and they are already provision in that act that very precisely describe what the Environment Minister, my colleague Jonathan Wilkinson, has to do in order to get there. And these things take a bit of time, but Jonathan said it this morning, like, if I can do it faster, I will do it faster.
Okay, when are we going to have national targets and standards for recycling as part of your government's promise to have zero plastic waste by 2030? When should we expect to see those?
Well, to give you an idea of how far we have to go. So right now, about 9% of plastics are recycled in Canada. The European Union is striving for 90%, and we think this is what we should be striving for as well. Minister Wilkinson this morning said that he's confident that in the next 12 to 24 months, we will have a plan negotiated with provinces and territories, which would enable us to really increase our recycling targets for plastics in Canada.
All right. Is it still the government's intention to designate plastic at some point as a toxic substance? Tell me about that.
Well, and I know some people really in the industry are hurt by that. I mean, this is just basically the way that specific piece of legislation is done. Like, it's a label in the legislation, which goes back to when this bill was first introduced, and toxic substances were really these things that were like very directly harmful to our health or the environment. Over time, we've added substances to that list, which would include, for example, greenhouse gas, which are not, from a chemical perspective, toxics, but have very harmful impact on the environment. And now we would be adding these plastics. But as Minister Wilkinson said this morning, listen, if the issue is the label of that category, we can work on that.
So what you're saying, if I hear you right, what you're saying is the labeling it as a toxic substance, if that's what's going to happen, sounds like like it is to allow the regulation of some plastics, but not suggesting all plastics are evil.
Exactly, totally.
Okay, the government of Alberta has actually turned to plastics for some economic salvation, hoping to make Alberta a hub of plastic recycling by introducing, by introducing the plastic bans that you have and discussions around labeling plastic as a toxic substance. Are you concerned that undermines Alberta's plans?
No, quite the opposite. Minister Wilkinson saluted, and I would too, Alberta's initiative. And what we want to do is totally in line with what they want to do. We want to ensure that there's more plastic that is being recycled in this country. And these substances that we're banning aren't being recycled because it's complicated, it's expensive. I mean, can you imagine trying to put in place frankly, I don't know of anywhere around the world that has a recycling program for straws. Just the sheer cost of recuperating, transporting plastic straws. Can you imagine like trucks filled with plastic straws? You would it's just not feasible. But there are lots of other plastics that can and should be recycled, and we want to increase the level of recycling, which would make what Alberta's trying to do even more profitable.
Okay. Let's finish on this. We're producing and using tons of plastic personal protective equipment during the pandemic, and yet you're talking about plastic bans and perhaps plastic as a toxic substance. How will those policies affect the production and use of personal protective equipment?
It won't. I mean, obviously, we need to provide Canadians with safety measures regarding COVID. None of the substances that are being banned are personal protective equipment, PPEs. But on PPEs, let's work with producers to ensure that if people use them, they're disposed of carefully and they don't end up in our environment. There's even some initiatives in Canada right now to produce biodegradable PPEs, which could be used, but then would not be harmful to the environment. But the way the regulation is proposed right now, it would not impact our ability to have access to these PPEs.
All right, Steven Guilbeault, always good to talk to you. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you.